I'm here in the jungles of the Yucatan, which is not the kind of place you'd normally expect to find an underwater kind of guy like me. But flowing beneath these forests are incredible underground rivers. And in places, holes in the forest floor like this one provide access to an amazing unseen world. Hi, I'm Jonathan Bird, and welcome to my world.
The holes in the ground are called cenotes, from a Mayan word meaning sacred well. But not all cenotes look like a hole in the ground. Some appear at first to be ponds. Yet they all share one common trait: their openings to underwater caves and caverns. Mexico's Riviera Maya in the Yucatan Peninsula is a vast rainforest filled with hundreds of cenotes. There are thousands of miles of underground rivers here. My adventure begins first thing in the morning at H2O Pro Diving in Tulum, where we load our gear into a van to begin the journey out into the middle of nowhere towards the cenote. My guide Marco Wagner is an experienced cave diving instructor who will keep me out of trouble with a safe introduction to the sport of cenote diving.
So I can hardly wait to see this thing.
Unless you're specially certified for cave diving, you should only dive with a local guide who knows the cenote well. Today we're diving a famous cenote called Calavera.
Calavera means translated skull. And you see the big mouth and you see the small eyes. These are all the small eyes where we see them in the dive where the light beams are coming in and they look like disco lasers.
Wow, this is really way out in the jungle. How do you think anybody found this place?
I mean, they get explored by the owners of the land also itself. They discover the cenotes because they have huge pieces, huge chunks of land. And actually when they chop the trees down and they make trails, they found the cenote also from... Cenotes are here for the ancient Mayans also, which were like sacred wells for them. That's where the cenote is coming from, the word. It's coming from the Mayan word cenote, that means sacred well.
So the Mayans, this was a really important source of water, or?
They also used the groundwater as well, but also for sacrificing for the gods. Some cenotes were used. But there's still the groundwater also still comes from these underground rivers what we have here in the peninsula.
Wow, that's cool. It's deep too. So we're gonna have to jump down. How far is that?
That is about 2.50 meters, 3 meters more or less.
Echo! Oh yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Now it's time to begin our dive. We grab our gear from the van and suit up near the road. Marco is wearing double tanks and all kinds of cool technical cave diving gear. Me? I'm just wearing my normal scuba gear and a few extra flashlights. The walk-in was plenty long and hot enough when I wasn't wearing my dive gear.
That water is gonna feel so good.
Marco gives me some last words of advice before I take the plunge. I think I'm more worried about the 10-foot drop into the water than the dive itself.
Cliff diving! Woohoo! Yeah! That's great.
The water's extremely clear. I adjust my camera lights and follow Marco down below the earth. As we enter the cenote's cavern, I realize that I'm truly heading into another world. This is not my area of expertise. I I follow Marco carefully and pay attention. We've brought some humongous lights to help illuminate the cavern for photography, and they really help show what it looks like. It's beautiful. The tunnels were formed by water rushing through and dissolving the soft limestone. But the intricate decorations hanging from the ceiling, called stalactites, can only form in a dry cave. Thousands of years ago, during the last ice age, the water levels were lower, and these very caves were bone dry. That's when these impressive stalactites were formed. On a visit to a dry cave, I can observe the actual growth of stalactites. But it's pretty slow. It works like this.
When it rains up in the rainforest, the water percolates through the limestone, and along the way it dissolves a little bit of the limestone. Then it drips from the roof of the cave, and over thousands of years, each drip leaves a little bit of limestone behind, forming an icicle-like structure called a stalactite. They get longer and longer and longer with time. But the water continues to drip, and eventually it hits the floor of the cave, forming a little bump. And that bump gets bigger and taller, forming sort of like an upside-down icicle called a stalagmite. If you wait long enough, the two of them keep getting longer and longer until they connect into what is called a column.
At the end of the Ice Age, the sea levels rose, and so too did the groundwater levels in the Yucatan. Soon, these huge subterranean caverns filled with water, leaving the stalactites frozen in time. In some places, the caverns have huge air pockets where the water doesn't go all the way to the top. Here, we can surface for a breath and take a look around. Some of the cenotes can even be explored by snorkelers. Good buoyancy control in the cavern is essential. The limestone formations are incredibly beautiful, yet fragile sculptures. The formations took thousands of years to form, but a single careless fin kick could destroy them in seconds. So we must kick gently and stay off the bottom. The floor of the cenote is covered in superfine silt. Swimming too close to the bottom would stir it up and reduce visibility to zero, which could be very dangerous. As I follow Marco deeper, the water starts to get weird and blurry looking. Many of these underground rivers make their way to the ocean. At some point along their journey, the water transitions from fresh to salt water. Salt water and fresh water have different densities. The interface between the two different densities can cause an optical condition called a halocline, where the water appears blurry. It's a weird, swirly, foggy haze. I follow Marco down below the halocline and into the salt water. I can taste the salt on my lips, and the temperature is about 5 degrees warmer. Soon we reach the Swiss cheese room. Down here, a chemical reaction with the salt water eats away some of the limestone, creating thousands of holes in the rock and the unique Swiss cheese appearance. It's a completely different kind of formation than I saw in the freshwater part of the cavern. As we swim into the far reaches of the cenote, we eventually reach a point where we can no longer see sunlight from the opening. This has now become true cave diving, a much more dangerous activity. Here we find a sign warning divers to stop and go no further. People have become lost and drowned in these vast labyrinths. This is as far as we go. Turning around, we head back out towards the entrance. Just before we reach the light of day, we find some Mayan pottery on the bottom, probably thrown into the cenote as an offering to the gods. The Mayans believed that the cenotes were pathways to the underworld. Offerings of gold, food, pottery, and even humans were made to the gods through the cenotes. With my scuba tank getting low, the time has come to leave the cenote, so I head back to the surface. In the shallow water just below the jungle, tiny fish come over to check me out. Some of them nibble on my hair and ears. They must be really hungry if they think I look like lunch.
Wow, I can't believe all the cool things I saw in this cenote. Who would have thought that there's so much amazing stuff hiding under the floor of the forest? And even though I'm done with my diving for the day, I think it's time for one more dip.